Hello, everybody, and welcome to Speaking from the Heart and How to Land Your First TED Talk webinar. So, this is Getrude Matshe here in beautiful Melbourne, Australia, and it gives me great pleasure to be here with you today to share with you a topic that, as you all know, is very, very close to my heart. I decided to put this webinar together to inspire you, energize you, give you ideas on how you can put together your TED Talk and land your first TED presentation. Now, I am a 3-time TED speaker. I live and breathe TED. I have been speaking for the last 25 years, and becoming a TED speaker really created my brand as an inspirational and motivational speaker. I remember living in New Zealand and getting an average of, I would say, $3,000 to $7,000 maximum per hour as a keynote speaker. But the minute I did my first TED Talk, my speaking fee went up tremendously. Now, why am I so passionate about making people aware of what can actually happen when you have the TED branding on your profile as a speaker? TED gives you instant credibility. TED gives you instant global visibility as well. So when I did my first TED Talk, the thing that happened for me is I was found online by a very famous family who live in the United States called the Rooneys. Mr. Rooney is a billionaire who is the owner of the football team called the Steelers football team. So if anybody's in the US, you'll know who I'm talking about. His wife was a professor at a private university in Pittsburgh. And when she retired, she created a position, an academic position called the Rooney International Scholar. And they bring in international speakers from all over the world to work and lecture for 6 months at Robert Morris University. It was one of the best speaking gigs I ever got. I remember lecturing for 2 hours a week, but what it did is my book, my memoir, transitioned from a memoir into an academic textbook because of that experience. I now lecture in social anthropology all over the world, and it has been absolutely life-changing. I cannot begin to describe what that did for me. It subsequently led to my getting more speaking engagements, not just in the United States, in the UK. I have been to 56 countries in the last 25 years as a professional speaker. So that's what the TED branding can do for you as well. So I prepared a presentation, and I just want to talk a little bit about the objectives of this workshop and how I can help you. Number one, identify your personal passion. You know, when you find a subject matter to speak around that you love, that you can do without being told how to do it, and you find a way to package your passion as the core message that you want to share, everything falls into place from there. I want to share with you how to craft a clear and compelling message. I want you to define your ideas into clear and impactful messages that land with your audience and that align with the TED Talk formula as well. We'll look at how to master the art of storytelling. I love to empower my speakers to use storytelling techniques that enhance an emotional connection with your audience. I also want to show you how to develop an effective presentation style and give you some practical advice on presentation skills, including body language, vocal variety, engaging visuals to boost confidence and have an impact. We'll also navigate the TED Talk application process and offer some insights of what to do before you pitch yourself to an event, during the event, and after. If you stay to the end of this webinar and fill out the form that I shared with all of you, and I will share it again at the end, you will also get the checklist for the application process and this workbook as well. I will also share with you a database of 1,200 TED events all over the world, United States, Canada, New Zealand, Australia, UK. It's a global database. So you know where to start, where to find the TED Talks that you can apply for. I'm also looking for people to come and speak at the Melbourne event. Melbourne is having an event on the 9th of October, and they're looking for speakers. So if anybody is interested and you want to be nominated, reach out to me through LinkedIn. I also want you to learn how to understand the business of speaking. You know, once you become a TED speaker, everything becomes possible. So our learning objectives for today, what I really want you to have by the end of this masterclass, is to uncover and articulate your why. Why do you want to speak? Why do you want to go down this profession? And how can you identify a unique idea or a story that you are passionate about sharing? We'll look at the structure of the TED Talk, how to organize your ideas into a cohesive structure that captures the audience from start to finish, including crafting a memorable and powerful opening as well. We'll go through creating how to engage through storytelling, how to gain the skills of storytelling that resonate with more audiences, and including how to incorporate your personal anecdotes and universal themes in your speech. We'll then polish up the presentation skills. We'll help you improve your public speaking skills, including effective body language, like I said, your vocal delivery, and the use of visuals or props, all tailored to the TED Talk formula. Then I want to prepare you for a successful TED application. You need to understand what the TED curators are looking for in the application process and how to pitch an idea that gets noticed. There's also ways to strategize for your speaking success and help you create a roadmap of how you can use your TED Talk to open doors for further speaking opportunities. It really enhances your professional reputation and helps you make a meaningful impact. So let's get right into it. Understanding TED Talks and your why. Now, what are TED Talks? I'll give you a brief history of TED and the essence of TED Talks. Always remember that TED is all about ideas worth spreading. So this was started to help speakers find a way to spread their ideas globally. Most TED events have 5 to 10 speakers, sometimes more, depending on the location. And it's really about finding your why. Why do you want to be a TED speaker? Why do you want to spread these ideas? So let's do a little exercise called the 5 whys. And the objective here is to help you dig deeper into your motivations, uncover the root reason behind your desire to speak. So, write down the initial reason why you want to give a TED Talk. I know it's not easy to think about this, but your why will really help you pull out the message that's going to be most effective. Why do you want to do a TED Talk? Sometimes people have developed methodologies, research, have ideas on how to do something, and you feel like what you know can help somebody else. Now, let me tell you a little bit about my 3 TED Talks and what my why was all about. So, when I moved to New Zealand 25 years ago, I wrote a book called Born on the Continent. I decided to give my book a subtitle called Ubuntu, Ubuntu, because Ubuntu is a way of life. It is a way of living, of seeing the world. The basic principles of Ubuntu are empathy, collaboration, compassion, connection, and community. And when I moved to New Zealand, a lot of people thought that Ubuntu was just the Linux operating system. Linux does have an operating system called Ubuntu, but what people don't realize is that the philosophy is based, the software is based on an African philosophy. So there is a lot of misappropriation of African content. And I decided to take the word back, explain it the way that I know it, because I grew up in Southern Africa, and it is a way of living, it's a way of being. There weren't a lot of books written about the philosophy as well. So I became one of the first people to write a book about Ubuntu, but to share it on the TED platform. What has since happened is I've branded myself as a thought leader on this subject. I have now done 3 TED Talks about the same subject, and it is amazing what happens when you hit on an idea that other people see as being of value. They want to learn from you, and it becomes your go-to signature speech. So, like I said, I now lecture in social anthropology in major universities around the world just because I know the subject really well. So, let's start with an activity. I want you to write down a list of some significant life events, achievements, challenges, or turning points in your life. What are the common themes or lessons that you learned from these experiences? And then select the most impactful theme and align it with your values and interests. Now, if we were together or in a live event, we could have gone deeper into expressing what those ideas are. I'm going to share the link to this event. I can see Kim, you are here in Brisbane listening in. If anybody would like to join me, click on this link and you can actually come onto the platform and we can discuss your particular TED Talk during this workshop as well. So I can guide you and help you. So Kim, jump in and let's have a conversation, because this will help everybody else who's listening to this webinar on how they can craft their TED Talk idea It really helps me when I have somebody live who we can brainstorm with so that you can leave here knowing exactly how to put together your TED Talk. So, Kim, join me. Just click on the link that I've just shared, and let's have you help facilitate with this workshop. So, what is your why? What are the major things that have happened in your life, and you want to see how you can use that life challenge to develop your own personal TED Talk? It's really fascinating when you get a hang of all of this. And like I said, this works really well when I've got people in the studio with me. For those people who registered to do this event on LinkedIn, I did put the links and I sent you a personal invitation in your inboxes. So just go back to your inbox. Wonderful. There's Kim. Hey, Kim, how are you?
I'm wonderful. I'm wonderful.
Thank you
I'm
for
wonderful.
waking up so early at 6 o'clock in the morning to join me today. Now,
And,
I know you've had ideas to do a TED Talk yourself. Let's have a little conversation about your content. What would you like to share if you were to get on the TED platform?
um, that women and posture, busy women who are mothers, who work, posture, correct posture is everything. It gives us relief from back pain, neck pain, shoulder pain. And as we've all had kids, you pick up your babies and put them on one side of your hip and you walk around hanging out the washing, etc. And the pain in your shoulders and neck, you can't understand where that comes from, and it debilitates you. And even as a busy woman in the office, if you're at the computer, you're slumped over, you need to have fantastic posture too. It's not just about that, it relieves your mind as well.
Okay, so that is an excellent example of a TED Talk that can help people, an idea that's worth spreading. So, posture. Now, you are very, very clear about what you want to speak about. This is obviously based on your own personal experience, correct?
Yes, yes, it is.
Okay. So, what have you done personally to help with your posture to relieve the pain that is created by not standing properly, sitting properly? What is the solution to this problem?
The solution is to move every hour, hour and a half, to do small increment stretches during the day to remind yourself to alleviate it. A lot of people think they don't have time to exercise, and that's a misconception. You don't have to go to the gym to alleviate the pain. You can do it in a 3-minute segment every hour. It's just very, very simple.
So, it's constant movement, making
Yes,
sure you're not in one place for more than an hour, correct?
yes, definitely.
Okay. What else?
What else? Just eating properly as well, and hydrating, having the right nutrition, and remembering to hydrate. Like, a lot of people assume that we get dehydrated in summer. It's actually the opposite. In winter, we are dehydrated because it's cold. We don't want to drink as much water. So
Okay.
hydration's very important.
Okay. What else?
What
Just
else?
taking notes as you speak so I can.
I think when you get into it, it actually empowers your mind. You're not so foggy, you're not so drained. So I think it's the part of the mindset as well of alleviate all of that pain. And so I think it affects, bad posture affects your mind as well.
Okay. All right. So, as you were speaking, I'm just making a few notes.
Thank you.
And trying to find a way that your speech can give people a solution.
Right.
So there is a structure to putting together a TED Talk, and it's broken into 3 parts. In the very beginning of your talk, it's great to tell a personal story, something that happened to you that illustrates the lessons that you want to teach during the presentation or during the talk, right?
Right.
So you could start off with a story of how you were a young mom with little babies, like you just did in a few minutes ago, and what that did to your posture until you found a solution on how to correct it, right?
Right.
So most TED Talks are 15 minutes long.
Mm-hmm.
So the first 5 minutes could be shared with a story around your personal life, what happened to your back, how you found a solution to it. So I know you do a lot of yoga, a lot of stretching exercises. That's really your thing, right?
Yes, it is. Correct.
Okay. Now, in the middle, you could talk about the things that went wrong because you didn't have the right posture, the back pain that you
Definitely.
experienced. Then you found a solution and started a group. You were doing yoga with some friends, you were doing it in the park, you got yourself a personal trainer, whatever that is, that was the solution. Then at the end of the speech, you have to give people what's called a call to action.
Right.
5 simple steps to correct your posture. Now, you talked about nutrition, hydration, movement. Another thing that could really help is to create an acronym that people can remember. So you could take the word posture and say, P stands for positive, for example. And I'm just, pulling this out of my head.
Sounds good.
Okay. Positive posture helps you with back pain. O stands for your outlook. You know how you were talking about your mental capacity as well.
Yes. Yes.
S stands for strength or strengthens. So if you do
Mm-hmm.
yoga, it strengthens your posture.
Yes.
T stands for your thoughts. U stands for if you have a good posture, it uplifts you, it uplifts your mood and your spirit. R stands for resilience. As you grow older, you want to build resilience in terms of how you're utilizing your body. And E could be aware of your posture every single day. So
Wow.
a quick
Bless
example.
you. I love it.
Yeah, so if you can find a word that summarizes, that will really help you land a very, very good TED Talk. Does that make sense?
Oh, absolutely. That was brilliant. That was just in a second. Goodness me.
So we have
Fabulous.
Melissa joining us as well. Melissa, good to see you. How are you today?
Doing okay. Um,
Glad you got the link and you're joining us. I know you and I talked very, very briefly. We never went into a lot of detail about your TED Talk, but I gave you some
yeah,
homework. And now
I.
let's find
It's
out
so
what
weird.
ideas you have.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about your TED Talk. What ideas have come up for you so far? Melissa, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. I have you on. Wait, I didn't. I still had the LinkedIn one on, and I'm
Okay.
learning. I'm learning technology.
Okay.
um,
So let's talk about your
yes. So, that's sort of where I always have the little, as soon as, where do I start? I mean, there's so many different avenues that consist of how I got to where I am, even right here on this webinar. But for the most part, it's been a series of interconnected traumatic events that have to do with racial trauma and um, and not really and growing to understand what racial trauma is, baptism by fire. And then slowly getting to read more about it, getting to college, learning more about it while still going through it. And to be able to still not, well, it's a balance. So on one hand, to be able to still be proud of who I am as a Black woman and to love my Blackness. And then on the other hand, to be able to understand when people are coming from a malicious intent, or just from intent where they may not have had the opportunity to grow up around Black people in their lives, or to have connections, intimate connections. And so as a result, they just do and say things that would be insensitive, but are open to hearing when I say that didn't come out right. And then they go, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. And then take it as a learning moment. And so as I've grown through the different experiences of that, and living in England, doing my A-levels in England, and being able to understand the global perspective. What it has created in me to where I am now is that there was a very traumatic event that happened that derailed me, completely derailed me, sidetracked me. It was a racial event, but to this day, it is the one thing that sort of killed my spirit. And for years, for maybe 2 or 3 years after, I was not able to get out of bed. I was, so from there, a few years after that, I had been diagnosed with breast cancer and had to have a double mastectomy. And through that journey as well, I started really getting sort of an I don't care attitude, where I am going to take care of my health. And if there are people in my circle or the outer circle who are not, who are toxic, then I have no problem, pushing them aside, because, I was diagnosed in 2022, and December was my last treatment, and I'm happy to say I am cancer-free. I still have to go back, but 99.999% cancer-free. And so, and it's really led me to, since then, I've lost my job just because of the many surgeries I had to have. But it propelled me, that happening. I'm an English professor, so that happening, where I wasn't getting any more classes, made me realize maybe I want to pivot and do something else. So I got a certification at the University of Chicago, which I graduated from in May, this past May, with certification in DEI, and realized that this has been my calling my whole life, to just want to have my message through my poetry, through my stories, and through my lived experiences, I think resonate to a lot of people,
Mhm.
in terms that there are enough people in this world that want to do good,
Yes.
that just need to hear an empowering speech that sort of makes them thoughtful about how they show up,
Yeah.
and makes them thoughtful about that there are other people in the world who may not look like them, who may not speak like them, who may not have have had the same you know lived in the same countries or cultural experiences. But
Mm.
when I tell my stories, people come up to me after who, I mean, elderly people, young kids. I had a 16-year-old come up to me the other day and said that I spoke like I was speaking right to her. And then I
Okay.
have people from all other walks of life saying that. So that has made me realize that that we all just really want one thing, and that's connection.
Yes.
And
Now,
so,
since we met, Melissa, a lot of things have come up for me in terms of your content, right? So, one of the most powerful things about being a speaker is you're becoming a thought leader. You are going out into the world with something that you teach that can help somebody else, right? Now, when you have a book and you're a speaker, it amplifies your message even more. It gives you credibility around the subject matter that you're talking about. So for you, Kim, you have steps, you've got postures that you can teach, that you can illustrate. Melissa, you could brand yourself very easily as an expert on racial trauma. So I did a bit of homework after we connected the first time because you're one of my new clients. And I came up with a structure for a book that you could potentially write.
wow.
So this is what's come up for me. I took the word racial trauma
Mm-hmm.
and broke it down so that each letter means something.
Wow.
So this could potentially be chapters to a book. You talked about recognition, people just recognizing who they are, what they understand or don't understand about racism.
Mm-hmm.
You talked about bringing an awareness that it's there. You talked about having compassion. Compassion is something that everybody is striving for, right?
Mm-hmm.
Inclusion. You told me a story of your childhood and that experience with the priests and the nuns and what they did to you as a child. That is a story of being excluded.
Mm-hmm.
Acceptance,
Mm-hmm.
learning, tolerance is part of all of this. Resilience, just the resilient spirit that you have.
Mm-hmm.
How you've had to adapt. A lot of people of color have to adapt to the situations and circumstances they find themselves in. Understanding, understanding where people are when they express racist overtones,
Mm-hmm.
and two, understanding who you are
Mm-hmm.
as a human being. The impact on mental health is huge.
Yes, absolutely. I do have data about that too.
And
Yeah.
then what actions can be taken.
That's
So
wonderful. Oh my goodness.
this could be a fantastic book.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. And you know what? I actually I write poetry, empowerment poetry. My experiences, the things I've been through racially, but I've been writing them since I was a little kid, and I have a book. I've kept them, and that's what I read. A lot of times, I'll go to colleges or universities and read for like Black History Month or And every time I read, people come up to me and say, "Where can I get your book?" And that acronym that you made, I can actually think of. I mean, I can actually have like a poem,
Yes.
an original poem, and then go into the chapter to speak.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So now let's do a little exercise. I want both of you just take a few minutes to condense your TED Talk idea into a concise and engaging summary. 280 characters or less, similar to a tweet. I'll give you a few minutes just to write something down. So when you can condense your message to the length of a tweet, it will land and make sense straight away. So you're not waffling, you're not beating around the bush, you're getting straight to the heart of the matter. So what is your TED idea about? If you're ready to share it, let me know.
Yes.
Alyssa dropped out, but go ahead, Kim.
To be pain-free in your neck and back and shoulders.
To be pain-free on your neck, back, and shoulders. Okay. Very, very brief and to the point. But let's go back to the word posture.
Okay.
Because that's what you said you want to talk about, right?
Yes.
So take us back to the word posture. Do it again and see if you can incorporate the words you've just said.
Okay.
Melissa, you dropped out. Do you have anything to share?
I didn't to condense. I didn't. The last thing I heard you say was that you wanted us to condense, and then I didn't
Yes.
hear
So
anything.
condense your idea worth spreading, like you're writing a tweet, a short
Oh my God.
280 characters or less.
Okay.
It's very challenging.
Yes, it is.
If you can explain your TED idea concisely,
Uh-huh.
it means that you understand what it is and the other person will get it as well quickly.
Okay. Okay. So, I think it would have to do with. Are we just thinking in our heads right now, and then we're just going to share our answers?
Yeah, we're just
Okay.
sharing whatever comes up for you.
Okay.
So Kim, if you're ready to share what you had just said.
I've just changed it. I've got correct posture, be back pain and neck free.
Correct posture is?
Correct posture to be free of back, neck pain.
Okay, so that's really concise. Correct posture is to be pain-free, is to be back, neck, and
shoulder pain free. I know it doesn't sound right.
Yeah, I know, but I mean, this is something you can work on, right? But you're
Right.
getting there. That's getting there because your word is posture. It's now, how do you describe why it's good to have a good posture? But
Right.
you can work on it and refine it. But you've
Okay.
got the essence of what I'm going for, right?
Yes, thank you.
So the important thing is for you to reflect on your why.
Mm.
Why am I doing this? How can I explain what my idea is in a very, very concise way? Now let's work on crafting your message. We've identified what your core message is or your core idea, right? I want to see if we can refine your central message in a clear and compelling way.
Before we do that, I just want to apologize for my for rudeness. Kim, it's nice to meet you. And I totally understand back pain issues. My husband actually, that's what he does for a living. He's a pain management physician. So I understand sciatic, like how painful and debilitating it is.
Yes.
So I just want to let you know.
And you weren't being rude, and bless you for even thinking you were when you weren't. Your story is amazing, I must say.
Okay.
And I've been doing my thing for over 35 years. I'm a qualified sports medicine practitioner, personal trainer, and nutrition. And it's my passion to share for women and people to be pain-free from their neck and shoulders when they're working and whatever. But thank bless you for being so precious and genuine. Your story is so beautiful.
Thank you.
All right, now let's go through what's called the arch of a story. This is the formula that you use to put your speech together. You have to create 7 points to the story. The beginning is the hook. This is where you have to draw people into your story straight away so that you don't lose them. You know, doing a TED Talk is like reading a book. You know, the best books that you've read, they suck you in from the first page. So what story can you tell in the beginning that makes people lean in and just want to know more? And stories are powerful because human beings are wired to learn through stories. So think of a hook. It could be a question, Kim. Do you experience
Yes.
shoulder, neck, back pain?
Mm-hmm.
It could be for you, Melissa. Put up your hand if you've ever experienced racism. You know, you want people to take action. You want them to say yes to the message that you're about to share. So what is going to be that hook? Some people start off with something funny. It could be a joke. It could be sharing some statistics around the subject matter. I'm going to ask you to just mute yourselves. One of you has got a bit of background noise.
Oh, I'm sorry. That must be me.
Okay. And feel free to unmute when you want to talk, Melissa, when you want to share something. So point number 2 is plot point 1. So now you've shared a short little story in the beginning. Plot point 1 is going to be a turning point. Something that happened where the situation changed. Plot point 2, midpoint, plot point 3. There is a TED Talk that I would love you guys to watch. It's called The Secret Structure of Great Talks by Nancy Druant, and I'm going to share it in the chat. Every great TED Talk has a rhythm to it. There is a way that the best orators in the world speak. I'll put this in the private chat for you ladies, and I'll put this in the comments for the people who are listening in online. The Secret Structure of Great Talks. So this is a researcher who mapped out the best orators in the world, from Martin Luther King, Mahatma Gandhi, you name it, all of the great speakers. And there's a rhythm that she found in the best speakers, the way they communicate. And the rhythm is very simple. It's almost like a graph. So if you remember the Martin Luther King, he starts off at the bottom with talking about the situation of African Americans in the 60s, during the civil rights movement. So things are really low for Black people. Then the graph goes up and he talks about the dream. I have a dream. He pulls you out of the sadness into the vision of something positive. And he holds you with the dream that he dreams that his children will one day live in a world where there is no racial segregation. Then he pulls you back down to the current situation of Black people in America during the 60s. And he pulls you back out into the dream. So Martin Luther King's speech is one of the best speeches to illustrate this for me anyway. It's like a graph. He keeps going up, he keeps coming down, he keeps going up, he keeps coming down. The best way for you to do this for yourselves is to draw what's called a timeline for your life. And I'll show you what this timeline looks like. Everything is in the worksheet that I've given you. This would be your personal timeline. And this is mapping out the story of your life from the age of 5 to 75 or 80 or however old you are. And on this axis, we're talking about life. The day you are born, your graph is right at the top. Life is spectacular. You've made it into the world. And then as you go through life, things happen. Life is great. Life is good. It's decent. It's bad. Life is very bad. Life is miserable. So for you, Melissa, for example, you could talk about when I was born, it was wonderful. I made it into this world. And then I'm put in the school where life is bad. I'm mistreated as a child. I'm made to experience the fact that I'm Black and a minority. And then maybe life gets better and the graph goes up and then it comes down again. You have cancer and now you're trying to recover. And now life is going back up again because you're rebuilding your health. So you could actually find the points for your speech by using this graph. Does that make sense?
Yes, I didn't get the paperwork. I don't know if I was supposed to get it already, but
I'll share it with you on Facebook, so you can download it on Facebook. And okay. Kim, I will send it to you as well. I did ask people to fill out a form so that I can give you the download link. So if any of you didn't get the message, to fill out a form so you get access to the replay of today's webinar. I will share that at the end as well.
So we're gonna plot points on this.
We're going to map out your own life.
Okay.
So for me, for example, the day I'm born, age of 0 to 5, life is spectacular. However, at the age of 3, my parents went to the UK. I was left at the age of 9 months until I was 3 years old with my grandmother. So life goes down. Then I went and lived in the UK back with my parents. Life goes up again. So it's a zigzag to our lives.
Yes.
And you can then find those plot points for your speech in the points that are high and low.
Wow.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
That's really where you take people through an emotional roller coaster ride with you through your speech. It's those highs and lows that you include in the speech. So sometimes people come to me and they say, I'm a bit overwhelmed. I have this story that is just so big. So many things have happened to me. I'm not sure what to include and what to exclude. You only have 15 minutes to give the speech.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you compress and condense your life and pull out the main things that will be impactful? And this graph will help you do that.
Okay. And this is for all TED Talks, like even like the 3-minute ones and the
yes. And the way we will put together your TED Talk is we work on a 3-minute video that you use to pitch. So when you're putting in your application, they want a 3-minute video that encapsulates what your speech is about. So that's really important, that the condensing of your idea also has to be condensed into a 3-minute speech.
Wow.
So let
So
me share with you.
is it like an elevator pitch? Is
Like
that what?
pitch, correct.
Okay.
But it has to capture the essence of the speech that you're going to give.
Okay.
And that is very, very challenging to condense it. Just 3 minutes. It's good to practice and do several of these, because once you get the hang of it, when it comes to writing the full speech, it becomes easy. So I've been working on a new presentation, again, about Ubuntu. So I've stuck to one subject matter. Ubuntu is my thought as a thought leader that I share. Brene Brown's is resilience. Kim, yours could be posture. Melissa, you could be a thought leader on racial trauma. So you build all of your content around one thread of thought. So I can talk about the Ubuntu philosophy in business. I can talk about it in communities. I can talk about it in homes and families. It's a thought that can be positioned in multiple places. So I've been invited to come back onto the TED platform several times because my content can be applied in many ways. So I explain it from different perspectives. So just before COVID, I started preparing this speech. And it's funny that I didn't get to pitch because COVID happened. Now my speech makes more sense after COVID. So I'll share with you my little 3-minute pitch. Let me know if the sound is coming through. Imagine for a moment if we could solve the world's problems like our blood heals wounds. My name is Getrude Matshe, and my idea worth spreading is an African philosophy that is close to my heart. Ubuntu ngamuntu ngabantu is the spiritual foundation of most African societies. It articulates the condition of being human. It emphasizes on a lifestyle of radical connection to others as a solution to the world's problems. In 2017, I collapsed of congestive heart failure in a rice field in Bali, Indonesia. I remember my angiogram and watching the dye rushing through my veins on the monitor in front of me. And I started having a conversation with my heart. And I said, why? Why are you doing this to me? And my heart answered back ever so gently. And it said, Getrude, you have done this to me. I pump oxygen and nutrients to every single cell in your body to keep you alive, but you've forgotten to take care of me. As I got this understanding, the procedure stopped, and I was told that my coronary arteries were clear, and the fluid that had built up around my heart could be drained with the diuretic blood pressure medication that I was on. So how does this relate to an African philosophy? Well, the African philosophy explains that the human body is like the cells of one organism called the human race. And the solution to all of humanity's problems is simply for us to remember that we are so intertwined that there is no separation between us. And our perceived differences are only skin deep. When they finished sequencing the human genome, they found that every single human being on this planet is 99.9% the same. So my mission in this lifetime is to simply help people remember that connection, empathy, and compassion are the superpowers that we all possess. And all we need to do is to remember this so we can reconnect and heal. So we are the cells of one organism called humanity. And our survival as a race depends on us reconnecting. So in Ubuntu, there is no you, there is no me, there is only we. Thank you. So that is my little pitch video.
That's amazing.
So you can see that it's a big concept, right? That's been condensed into 3 minutes. There's going to be opportunities where you'll do a 3-minute TED Talk. You can do a 5-minute, 10-minute, 15 minutes. So what I do with my clients when I'm coaching you, we first work on the pitch video, 3 minutes. We work on a 5-minute video, a 10-minute video, a 15-minute video. So when you're pitching yourself to any TED event, sometimes they don't have, a lot of time. If you're one of those speakers who's versatile and you can explain your message in just a few minutes, they will take you on. They might have a slot for 5 minutes. This is Derek Shivers. He has one of the best TED Talks, the shortest TED Talk that has really succeeded. Just incredible what he did in 3 minutes. Millions of views on this video. So it's not about waffling and talking for hours. If you're really clear what your message is, it can be told in a very short space of time. So Derek Shivers did a speech on how to start a movement. I love this as an example of a very short TED Talk. We'll watch this.
So ladies and gentlemen, at TED, we talk a lot about leadership and how to make a movement. So let's watch a movement happen in under 3 minutes. A lesson from it. First, of course, a leader needs the guts to stand out and be ridiculed. But what he's doing is so easy to follow. So here's his first follower with a crucial role. He's going to show everyone else how to follow. Now notice that the leader embraces him as an equal. So now it's not about the leader anymore. It's about them, plural. Now there he is calling to his friends. Now if you notice that the first follower is actually an underestimated form of leadership in itself. It takes guts to stand out like that. The first follower is what transforms a lone nut into a leader. And here comes a second follower. Now it's not a lone nut, it's not 2 nuts, 3 is a crowd, and the crowd is news. So a movement must be public. It's important to show not just the leader, but the followers, because you find that new followers emulate the followers, not the leader. Now here come 2 more people, and immediately after, 3 more people. Now we've got momentum. This is the tipping point. Now we've got a movement. So notice that as more people join in, it's less risky. So those that were sitting on the fence before now have no reason not to. They won't stand out. They won't be ridiculed, but they will be part of the in crowd if they hurry. So over the next minute, you'll see all of the those that prefer to stick with the crowd, because eventually they would be ridiculed for not joining in. And that's how you make a movement. But let's recap some lessons from this. So first, if you are the type, like the shirtless dancing guy, that is standing alone, remember the importance of nurturing your first few followers as equals. So it's clearly about the movement, not you. Okay, but we might have missed the real lesson here. The biggest lesson, if you noticed, did you catch it? Is that leadership is over-glorified. That yes, it was the shirtless guy was first, and he'll get all the credit, but it was really the first follower that transformed the lone nut into a leader. So as we're told that we should all be leaders, that would be really ineffective. If you really care about starting a movement, have the courage to follow and show others how to follow. And when you find a lone nut doing something great, have the guts to be the first one to stand up and join in. And what a perfect place to do that, Ted. Thanks.
Wow, that's great.
And that was less than 3 minutes.
Wow.
That's a whole TED Talk in less than 3 minutes.
Right.
He used the video as a prop. So you can come on stage with props as well. My second TED Talk was in upstate New York, and I used broomsticks to illustrate something. So I will share with you the 3 TED Talks I've done, the different methods of how I got attention. The very first TED Talk I did, I wasn't on stage. So they announced my name, and I decided to sit in the audience with my daughter and walk down to the stage in this darkness so people could just hear my voice as I was speaking. So it drew a little bit of curiosity. The use of humor in your presentations is really useful as well, especially if you are speaking on a subject matter that is very heavy. Try and keep it light. They say that you shouldn't leave people feeling sorrow or sadness. You have to finish your speech with something positive and uplifting. So no matter how serious your subject matter is, be very aware of the emotions that you're taking people through. But finishing off on something positive is better than finishing off on something that is negative and that brings people down. So let's go back now to that graph. Now it will make a little bit more sense now that you've seen a few examples. There's our 7-point structure. You start with your hook. There's going to be a midpoint in the speech, and there's going to be a resolution. That resolution is, this is what you can do to implement my idea. So let's talk a little bit about authentic delivery. When you speak with authenticity, people feel it. And the reason why I created Speaking from the Heart and How to Land Your First TED Talk is because I coach people to get out of their heads and drop into a heart space when you're speaking. I learned this when I was giving a speech in Mexico City. So I flew from New Zealand. I'm the keynote speaker at an event with 3,000 people. I had a PowerPoint presentation that went wrong. My friend translated the opening of my speech, the first paragraph, into Spanish. And fortunately, phonetically, Spanish sounds like my mother tongue. It sounds like Shona. So I can read Spanish like I'm somebody who speaks it. And from the airport to the venue, she corrected a few mistakes that I had. I get up on stage in front of 3,000 people, and the PowerPoint fails. And I remember closing my eyes and thinking, what am I going to do now? And this voice in my head said, take off your shoes. So if you notice, in all of my TED Talks, I speak barefooted. I was wearing high heels. So I felt like I had to really ground myself. And then I asked, how may I serve? How may I serve the people who are in this room? And I opened my mouth, and what came out to this day, I cannot tell you what I said. Something took over my body. I knew my subject matter. I knew the content I wanted to share. And I had people coming up to me at the end of that speech and asking me to write down quotes of things that I said, and I couldn't remember anything. And there's a man who came up to me after I finished speaking, and he said to me, Getrude, you moved me to the core. I have not cried since I was 5 years old. I don't know what you did today. And he asked if he could hug me. And when he put his arms around me, there was like an electrical charge. You know how sometimes you're wearing a dress and there's static? I zapped him. There was this energy thing that happened. And he was a very hairy man. The hair on his chest lifted his chest like this. The hairs on his arms were standing, and it was so creepy. And he advised me to go onto the Heart Math Institute's website. The human being has got a magnetic field that spans the length of your arms. Our hearts give out a vibration that other people can pick up. So you know how somebody will walk into a room and before they even start speaking, you can just feel these negative vibes about them, but you can't explain why?
Yeah.
That's what we do as human beings. So when you learn to get out of your head and drop into your heart when you speak, people feel you. I now can see the wave of the vibration that I give out going out into the audience. So when I coach people to speak, yes, you memorize your content, you try to remember the words word for word, but it's more about embodying the content and making it a part of you so that you're not in your head, but you're speaking from your heart instead. That way, even if you make a mistake, it doesn't matter. So you will rehearse until you remember your speech as much as you can. But the place that I teach you to speak from is your heart. And it's a completely different way of connecting with people. What I find is that it transcends gender, race, sexuality. I'm able to deliver a message that people hear and feel. So that's part of what I coach people to do with speaking from the heart and how to land your first TED Talk as well. It's all about authentic communication, body language, visuals. Your body communicates more than what's coming out of your mouth. So posture, just the way you're standing, you know, Kim, you brought that up for us today, says a lot about who you are as a person. Learning how to stand on stage and be an authority. So if you go on stage and your shoulders are slumped, it's going to communicate to people a lack of self-confidence. So being aware of your posture as you're speaking is important as well. There's a lot of things that you need to learn in that capacity. So now I want to just take you guys through the TED application process and why it's important. And then the last 10 minutes of today, we're just going to have a Q&A where you guys can ask some questions. I can see if I can answer those questions, and you can leave here with a little bit more than you came in with. So one of the things you have to remember is when you get on the TED platform, you are now an authority on your subject matter. You are an expert. How can people tap into your expertise? And how are you branding yourself as an expert in your subject matter? There's a few things you can do online to start building your credibility. Look for free speaking opportunities. There's always different organizations that are looking for speakers. Speaking for free has done more for my career than speaking for money. And I'll explain why. When I wrote my first book, I started speaking for free more to sell my book than anything else. So I look for social networking groups like Rotary International, the Lions Clubs. There's a club called Probus, and they look for speakers every single week. They have meetings in the morning. They have meetings in the afternoon. They have meetings in the evening. So I started connecting with these social interest groups, and I would sell 100 copies of my book every single week.
Wow.
Speaking for free. Those same people started passing my name to events planners. And before I knew it, I'm getting hired to speak at conferences. So don't underestimate the power of speaking for free. It helped me gain self-confidence. It helped me see what was working in my speech and what wasn't. So you need to learn how to read the room when people are listening to you speak. The points where they laugh, the points where they listen. You have to see the interaction that you're having with people until you really perfect it. So that is really, really important for you to remember. And then you make sure that every single time you are out there giving presentations, whether it's paid or free, you are capturing the video content and putting it online and making sure that you have tagged that piece of video with the keywords that you want to be known for. So if you go online and you Google Getrude Matshe, you will find hundreds of videos. So where is the first place the TED organizers are going to go to look for you? They go online. They go into Google. They're going to type in your name. So what are they going to find? So this is me. This is Getrude Matshe. If you go into Google Images, you will find hundreds of photographs of me on the internet. You cannot mistake who it is. And they say that people are lazy. People don't scroll down beyond the crease. And the crease is the bottom part of the screen here. People don't do this anymore. So if you're not appearing in that top part of Google, they won't bother to search for you anywhere else. And the reason why there's so many images of me on Google is because I have search engine optimized my photographs for Google. So Google is a search engine that is based on words. So every time I'm invited to speak at a podcast, at an event, people say, send us your bio and a photograph. I make sure that I rename the file with Getrude Matshe. So you know how you take a photograph on your phone or a camera? The file name is just some random numbers, right? Make sure that you rename every single photograph you share online with your name. That's how the photographs will show up on Google. Does that make sense? Kim, Melissa, you're muted.
Could we go back into photos that are already online of us and do that? Or is that something that you can...
Yes, if you have control over the website, definitely yes.
Mm-hmm.
So even if you are creating your own website, every picture of you on that website needs to be search engine optimized. So go back to your website, rename the files and re-upload them.
Okay.
But it's just something to remember going forwards.
Okay.
Every time you're invited to an event, to give a speech, make sure you're giving pictures that have been renamed with your name. And if you have a common name, put an initial, something that will differentiate you from other people who have a similar name.
Is that the same for blog posts?
Same for blog posts, correct.
Thank you.
Then if you on Google on videos, there's hundreds of videos about me. Again, optimized for my name and optimized for my subject matter, Ubuntu.
Mm-hmm.
So the first two videos that appear have the word Ubuntu and my name. And then if you scroll down, it's just video after video with Getrude Matshe speaking.
Okay.
I've also made sure that people find me even if I'm speaking at other people's events. I try and do the same thing. Okay. So making yourself visible, preparing to pitch yourself for a TED event, very small little things you can do so that you are online and visible. If they search for you, they can search for you, and you're talking about the thing you say you're an expert at.
Mm,
The subject matter needs to be visible as well.
okay.
So that is just a few tips for preparing to get on TED. So I will also share with you the checklist for your application. Number one, what is the core and central idea that you want to share? How different is your idea to existing ideas? Now, there's nothing new or unique about Ubuntu as far as my speech is concerned. What I said when I answered that question is that my idea is unique because I'm bringing it to the mainstream. Ubuntu is an old, ancient philosophy that has existed for centuries. The difference is I am bringing it to the mainstream. So you can talk about an old subject, something that's been talked about before, but show what is different about you speaking about it. Does that make sense? So
Yeah.
racism in America, there's nothing new about that. We all know about it. But Melissa, you are focusing on the trauma of racism and the impact it has on people. That's your point of difference.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, and I'm going to, and what I do with all of my speeches that I do integrate curiosities and tidbits from Black history,
Yes.
and literature, because I'm an English professor, so literature, and I integrate that with my poetry, my story, and my.
And you see, that's what gives you credibility. Bringing in stats,
Mm-hmm.
data,
Mm-hmm.
that's what gives you credibility. Same thing with you, Kim. When you told us that you are an expert in A, B, C, D, those things need to be mentioned in your application as well. So the other thing they also want to know is the impact of your speech. How can your idea positively impact society or a specific community? So Kim, you could say posture for women over 50 is crucial, and that could be your focus. You know, you really have to think clearly, what is the impact of my speech? And then what is the evidence or research that supports your idea? And for you, Melissa, this is where you bring in all of this information that you've just talked about. Why is your idea relevant? Why is it important right now?
Mm-hmm.
Both of you have got compelling.
Yeah, it's my content might seem like it's geared for people of color, but it's not. It's geared for people of color, white people, Asian people, Hispanic people, because my underlying my underlying sort of vision for it is that people walk out of there less concerned about their differences and more excited about their commonalities. Exactly.
That's beautiful.
Can I say something, Melissa? When you first said about your story, it just brought back memories for me. It's very strange. Like, my parents emigrated from the UK to Australia, and I was the only sibling born in Australia. Going to school, because we have such a rich Celtic history and we were raised in it, get this, I was called weird all the time at school when I went to the public school. It was really quite extraordinary, and I didn't even know what it was. And kids were really cruel to me because we were so different, and yet I could never understand why. So I resonate with what you said, and people don't understand that, you know, we get ridiculed too because we came from England and Ireland to Australia, and wow, it was,
and
that's right.
That's what my content is exactly about.
Yes,
it's about.
Right.
Melissa, your sound is gone for some reason. We can't hear you. It's very weird. You're not muted though.
She's
Something
now-
changed. Now you're muted. Now you're muted. But your sound dropped out.
Is that better?
Okay, now you're back. Yeah.
Okay. So what I was saying was that that's actually what my content is about. It's not. I mean, I will be using, of course, my experience, which is as a Black woman, but I know for a fact I grew up around Italian people, and their parents were just as strict as my parents. I grew up around, when I was in England. I know Irish parents. They are strict and, spank, spare the rod, spoil the child. And, and so within these people sort of think about their own experiences with their culture in sort of a silo, so
Yeah.
I'm Italian, I'm Irish, I'm Black. But meanwhile, we've all had the same cultural experiences, but we don't know. We don't
Yes.
realize until you meet somebody and have a discussion. And so I always want my takeaway at the end is for people to look around and see each other nodding, like, oh my gosh, I went through this too. And by the
Yes.
end, then I like to have like a little fellowship at the end where people just get to talk to each other about what I've spoken about and how they've experienced it in their cultures.
Yes.
Yeah.
I love that. So the other thing is having a personal connection with people. Why are you passionate about this idea? What is the audience benefit? How will your idea benefit or inspire the audience? And clarity. Can you explain your idea in one clear and concise sentence, which is what we were trying to do in the very beginning?
Mhm.
The other thing on this checklist is understanding yourself as a thought leader. So, what is your expertise? What makes you an expert on this topic? Your experience, what personal or professional experiences have shaped your understanding of this idea? Your influence, how have you influenced others with your idea so far? Your values, what core values drive your work and the message? Your vision, what long-term vision do you have for your idea? And then public speaking. Do you have experience with public speaking or presenting your ideas? This is where the evidence comes in when I was saying you have to build your digital footprint. The challenges. What challenges have you faced in developing or promoting your idea? And learning. What have you learned from these challenges? Now, on the checklist, I also talk about crafting your talk. Engagement. How will you engage and captivate your audience and hold them with your words from the beginning of the speech to the end? Storytelling. Do you have a personal story that illustrates your idea? The takeaways, actionable takeaways. What actionable steps can your audience take after hearing your talk? Visuals, how will you use visuals or other aids to enhance your presentation? So all of this is in a checklist that I will share with everybody who's registered to get the replay and to get the workbook as well. So these are just things that you need to think about. So now we have 7 minutes left before our webinar ends. Let's open up for some questions, ideas, insights that you guys might have. Gloria, I can see you chiming in on LinkedIn. Gloria, let me share with you the link for you to join us if you have the time. And I know you're saying excellent presentation, but it'll be lovely for you to join us as well. So we'll start with you, Kim. What has come up for you? Any questions you have from today's webinar?
I think you've covered all of it quite well. Thank you. It's been a really interesting journey to actually write all this down and to learn from you. And Melissa's story is so beautiful.
Thank you.
Melissa, what has come up for you?
Oh my gosh, my mind is running 100 miles a minute. I don't even know where to start. So I like everything that most of the things that you were talking about. I feel like that I have, but none of it is called together and none of it is pulled together. So like, as you see, I had like 3 different speaking engagements over the past week, and completely different, received differently for all of them. But one of the things that was interesting to me was that at one of the events, it was effusive. Like everybody really like came up to me and they were, wanted my business card. I don't have business cards, wanted my business card, wanted a copy of my book, wanted me to want to know when my next speaking engagement was because they wanted to invite people. And I had no answers for any of that, but it was so nice, the way that everybody was engaged. At the
Okay,
other,
hold on there before you move on. What was it about that particular speech that you think got everybody to connect at that level? So give us a backdrop. What was the event? What were you talking about?
Okay, so the event was Juneteenth. So we celebrate Juneteenth here in the United States. It became a federal holiday over the pandemic, and it is the day that the last enslaved people were given their freedom in Texas. And the interesting thing about that was that actually freedom came 2 years before. And the Texans, the enslavers, didn't want their enslaved people to know because they wanted to keep having the enslaved people, and never told them that the Emancipation Proclamation was signed and that they were free.
Oh.
And so for 2 years, and Juneteenth is the day that a general from the Union Army came into to Texas, made an announcement. There were there's probably about 300,000 enslaved people who were set free. And so what because it was Juneteenth, and it was in the site of, I don't know if any of you know Walt Whitman, the poet. So he was born on Long Island, and his house where he was born has become a museum. And so my speech was about Walt Whitman's literature and how he has had an impact on Black literature and Black poetry, and then integrating all of the themes that deal with this poet Walt Whitman, which are freedom and agency and things like that. And then what the Juneteenth enslaved people, newly free people, the whole idea of freedom and democracy, and is freedom, does freedom mean everyone or certain groups? So we had a conversation. And then I brought in, I love music, and I brought in rap music. So there's a rapper named Kendrick Lamar, and he was having an argument with another rapper. And so I was talking about the argument with the other rapper that he was having in music. Okay, so they were going music for music with each other. And I was explaining how Kendrick Lamar's way of delivering his content is the same way that Walt Whitman also, he was using the style of Walt Whitman in many cases to get his point across. and his point connected to Juneteenth. And then I did my own 2 poems I did that were original, my original poetry, and ended with those. And it discussed how my poetry, I wrote some of them when I was 15 years old. So I had no concept of Walt Whitman or anything like that. And how my poetry, even though I didn't know who Walt Whitman was, I was still on my own as a teenager using his styles to get my point across, which was a similar point that he had, which was that freedom was for everyone, equality meant everyone, and so on.
Okay. That was quite effective then. That's awesome.
It was, yeah. Even my 16-year-old.
What you did in that speech, there's something that landed really well with everyone. Pull out the things that you saw and try and incorporate that in developing your next TED Talk. You've hit on something that worked. So we're going to finish off with one last thing. So this is a client of mine based in Dallas. Deba is working on her pitch video, and I'm going to share with you what she started off with and what she's now got. Let's see. Tell me if you can see the screen and hear it.
Imagine being 90 years old and being surrounded by your family and friends as you are celebrating life on your birthday. You're enjoying these moments with your family and friends. You're reflecting on your life. You're embracing gratitude because you can't believe that you made it this far and God continues to bless you. But in that moment, as you're settling in and enjoying the moments with family and friends, as you sit in your rental house that you have lived in for over 15 years, you can't help but reflect and realize that in that moment where you're rejoicing and enjoying family and friends, that your rental property is $3,000 a month, that each year you've given your landlord over $36,000. And since you've been there for over 15 years, you've given your landlord close to $600,000 over time. And in that moment, that just kind of makes you sit uneasy and realize in that moment that you've given your landlord over $600,000. And in that time frame, your landlord has been able to pay off that property and cash flow a significant amount each and every month, because of you being a phenomenal tenant that pays on time with little maintenance or issues each and every month. But as you're thinking, you're just having regrets of, should you have bought that property? Should you have bought that land? How would your life have turned out? What would be the difference? And you're contemplating how you could have made a difference in the lifestyle or in the life of your grandchildren and great-grandchildren by you purchasing a property. According to the census, households that own their own home have a median wealth of over $300,000, substantially larger than those that rent, which is only $4,000. The Brooks Institute also mentioned that the median wealth for white households is $188,000. Nearly 8 times more than the average Black household, which is just over $24,000. And experts predict that without improved financial literacy, this gap will continue to grow. And one thing to note, 90% of millionaires became that through real estate. And that's just buying a property, living in there, then upgrading to another house, and over time you continue to grow in equity. I remember in 2017 that my dad was rushed to the hospital because he was having symptoms of a stroke. As my family gathered around him, and at this age, he's probably close to 60 years old. He was a smoker. But in that moment, as we all gathered around, my siblings, my family members, cousins, we all gathered around my father as he was struggling and fighting for his life for the stroke. Unfortunately, that day, as he fought and fought, the stroke and the symptoms of a stroke actually took place. And from that day on, he was paralyzed from the right side of his body. But one thing my dad did do in his early years, he bought a house that we grew up in. It was a cute little 3-bedroom, 1.5 bath house, maybe about 900 square feet home in the Garland, Texas area, which was a suburb outside of Dallas, Texas. He bought this home and he used to always tell us that this house is going to provide generational wealth for all of us. You know, me and my siblings, we are 12 years older or younger, and we didn't even understand what generational wealth was. But I will tell you, as I fast forward to when he had the stroke, during this transition of him unable to work, looking at his finances, I realized what he meant about generational wealth. In that moment, I realized that after I took over the finances, that one house that we continued to own and we turned it into a rental property, not only did it provide generational wealth for my father and for my siblings, it also covered the mortgage for their current home. It also covered their lifestyle for their current living situations. Even after a while, when my dad was unable to go to work ever again because of the stroke, that one house changed the trajectory for not only myself, for my siblings. So in that moment, I reflect on my dad made a visionary decision in his younger days when we were 12 years or under, that let me buy land, let me own something that is going to become a ripple effect in the entire family's life. In that moment, as I'm taking over my dad's finances, I'm looking through all of his frugal ways and realizing that everything he did was very calculated, but it was calculated in a way that it helped us grow financially. It helped us grow financially stable, where we were rooted and established and understand how money works and understand financial literacy. And he used to always tell us that one property will not make you wealthy. Heck, it won't make you rich, but it will change your life. So now I want you to imagine being 90 years old, celebrating your life with your family, friends, and close loved ones. And now you're on a 3-5 acre land on a house that you own. And now you're able to pass that down to not only your kids, but your kids' kids and your kids' kids. And you have set the tone of generational wealth by just taking one step of buying a property, of buying land. And over time, you've built equity, you've built wealth. And now all your children and everyone behind you will remember you for being the trailblazer that you are, for taking that first step and becoming a real estate investor.
So that was Deborah's first stab. And she's talking about building generational wealth through property investing, right? She just sent me the shorter version. So she's worked on it and refined it. Let's see how it's transformed. Oops. I think that's the same one, right? Let me see. I clicked on the wrong one. The one that I want. So you will work on your speech over and over and over again until you perfect it.
Imagine being 90 years old, surrounded by family and friends, celebrating life on your birthday. You're filled with gratitude for making it this far. But as you sit in the rental house you've lived in for over 15 years, you can't help but reflect on the $600,000 you paid your landlord over time. What if you had bought a property instead? How would your life and the life of your grandchildren be different? Home ownership creates substantial wealth. According to the census, households that own their own homes have a median wealth of over $300,000, compared to just $4,000 for renters. The Brookings Institute reports that white households have a median wealth of $188,000, nearly 8 times more than the average Black household. This wealth gap continues to grow without improved financial literacy. 90% of millionaires made their wealth through real estate. Simply buying a property, living in it, and upgrading it over time builds equity. I remember in 2017, my dad had a stroke and was paralyzed. Despite this, the house that he bought years ago provided for our family. We turned it into a rental property, and it not only covered the mortgage, but also supported our lifestyle. My dad's decision to buy this home changed our family's trajectory. He taught us that owning a property creates generational wealth. Now imagine being 90 years old on your own land, surrounded by your loved ones. You've set the tone for generational wealth, leaving a legacy for your children and their children. And all it takes is one step: buying property. Become the trailblazer for your family's financial future.
Can you see the difference?
Yeah, she's adorable.
He's managed to synthesize that long pitch. She still kept it personal with her dad's story, because the more personal your content, the more people can relate to it as well. So try not to be too scientific. The more you infuse who you are in your speech, it lands.
And I like her use of questions too, asking
Yes.
us questions, and you know, that was good.
So this is where we end today. I want to encourage you to go onto TED.com's website, Google the keywords for your speech, watch other videos, see what other people have done before you. They say that success leaves clues. I watch 3 to 5 TED Talks every day. 1, because I just love it. 2, because I have clients that I help, and I'm constantly trying to find content that relates to their speeches so they can find, inspiration. But don't try and reinvent the wheel. There's some successful people who've done something similar to what you're trying to do. Learn from them and see how they did it. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So thank you for coming online and sharing the morning with me. It was great that I had both of you, because it's nice when I have a practical session with people so people can see how this all works and how it all comes together. Thank you so much. And thank you to everybody who's tuned in. Again, if you want to get a copy of this replay, if you want to get the workbook, find me on LinkedIn, send me a message, and I will send you the form to fill out so you get access to the downloads. Bye for now, everybody.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you.